Okay, hi, good afternoon everyone, and very good welcome for today's session. So today we are having a panel discussion, and we're very happy to have invited four renowned Southeast Asian directors with us today in this theatre. So the four of them have directed episodes for HBO Asia's the Folklore series, which was created by our own local director, Mr. Khoo. So four of them here will be with us, just to have a little casual discussion about what makes folklore and horror work in cinema. And today we're also very happy to invite our moderator, Mohammad, Miss Mohammad from the NUS Museum to moderate the session. So I would like to just introduce them one by one. So first and foremost, I'll introduce Mr. Khoo, the creator of Folklore series. Next, I'd like to invite Mr. Ratanaruang up here to the stage. Thank you. We have Mr. Ho Yuhang from Malaysia, who directed Toyo in the series. And last but not least, we have all the way from Indonesia, Mr. Joko Anwar. So up to the stage. Thank you. And Wardah here will be our moderator, so you can take it over. Thank you very much.
Hello, can everybody hear me? Yep, good at the back there. Okay, good afternoon to all. Thank you all for joining us this Sunday. You could be at a fancy cafe somewhere, but you are here with us together with four directors over here. Before we start, I think we probably just give a bit of context to what we're gonna proceed with. Maybe I'll start with Eric. Could you just let us know more about the commissioning of this project? And I think more importantly, I think what is most of us curious about is how do you choose who to work with? Yeah.
You see, when I was a little boy, right, my mother would tell me all these folklore stories about the Pontianak, and I grew up also on the diet of all the local horror films. And when I was talking to HBO, I said, wouldn't it be nice if we sort of like got Asian filmmakers to do a take on, folklore from their countries and basically update it, make it contemporary, right? And they were keen on the idea, but one thing that I totally emphasized was that it had to be in mother tongue. So, it becomes more real and engaging. And also, I wanted all the episodes to be very different in terms of tone, form. And I knew the directors that I wanted to work with, so it was really easy because they're all friends of mine. And then I contacted them and said, look, would you be keen to come on board? And they all said, yeah, why not? And that was that. And it was really fun in a way working with HBO also because they trusted these author filmmakers and their vision. I think very important that once you select one of these, it's not like for me a director for hire, but more like visionaries. And I didn't really care too much whether they'd done horror or no horror, but they were filmmakers I wanted to work with and see what they come out with. And turned out pretty well.
So how involved were you in sort of the writing of the story? Do they like?
Okay, so all the thing, basically all we need to do was get a treatment from the director, right? And once the treatment comes in, then HBO and I will look at it and give points. And once that's greenlit, they will go off to write the script, and that's pretty much it. And I'd say that 80% of whatever they had envisioned would pretty much be there. Very slight alterations. Yeah.
Okay, so moving on to really the star of the series, I think it's the demons in each and every film. For those who are not here yesterday, I think three of you guys actually shared a little bit more on how you get to sort of choose your demons almost. But if you could just share a bit more on why do you choose the particular demon, why you choose to showcase them in your film. Probably we start with Joko and then we can just go there. Yeah, you feel comfortable. Yeah, too comfortable there.
The theme of motherhood has been very persistent in all my films. At least I have a pregnant lady in my film. My first film has a pregnant lady having a baby in a taxi. Second film, I have a pregnant lady being run over by a bus. The third movie is about a lady who keep getting pregnant and always kill her babies and put the babies inside a statue. So this I don't know why, and I think I have to resolve it one of these days. Why I always have that kind of theme in my films. But naturally, when Eric asked me to come up with a ghost to be featured in this series, I immediately thinking about this ghost, a female ghost who was when she was living, she could not bear children and commit suicide for not having able to have children. And after she died and become a ghost, she always kidnaps children and try to make the children her own. But since she cannot feed the children always die. So that's why I'm choosing this ghost called Wei Wei, or Wee Wee, if you read it in English. Hantu Tete, meaning the breast ghost, because the breasts are very long, almost to the floor. And I later find out that these demons was actually common in many other countries, even in South America. I saw this movie, The Curse of La Llorona, also have the same story with Wei Wei that we have in folklore, but the story is not as good as ours.
My story is Toyo, which is this little Khoo, small little monster that looks like me. I thought it's very natural for me to do something like that, midget-like, and there are two midgets in the film. So also whenever I imagine this little thing, they have a master, but that's the popular imagination, right? They are being used as to do things, to steal things, to commit some atrocious acts. But I always think of them as some kind of unwanted kids, like abandoned, So naturally, again, I think this story has a family element to it. So they must have come from somewhere, these little creatures. Somebody didn't want them. So it's So the story has to do with again, actually in my film, maybe subconsciously I copied you. There's a pregnant lady, very obviously pregnant later in the film. Yeah. Okay.
My episode is called Bob, and I have a few. In Thailand, we have a few famous ghosts. I chose Bob because it's the most human-like. Like the other ones are, if you have Krasud, you would only have the head and then just the intestines and stuff like that. But the story involves that the ghost meets an American guy and they cannot communicate. So the American guy didn't think that he's a ghost. So then he has a problem, So you need a ghost that looks most like a beggar, like a human being, so that the story would work. So I choose that. Secondly is because I thought I made my life a bit difficult we intended not to use any CGI at all in the film. So even the ghosts have to look transparent. You can see the background when you look at the ghosts in the film. So we did all that in camera. We used like very very old technique, like what they do in the old days with ghost films is that they use mirrors and glass and reflect and just dimming the light out and on. So we wanted to try to do that, and so again then the ghost has to be kind of like manageable as human, so that you don't have to hang things and you don't have to do mock-up and CGI and all that. So yeah, so we choose I choose the ghost that I chose because of he looks like the most human.
I basically chose the Pontianak because that's one of my favorite spirit schools, from childhood. But the interesting thing is, all the directors didn't know what the other was writing. They knew the spirits because we didn't want any overlapping. But the interesting thing is, when you watch all 6 episodes, right, the theme that runs through all of them is family. Parent-child. And I don't know why that's there, but it was maybe on a subconscious level. Everybody was there in synchronicity.
Just talking about the visualization of the demon itself, what sort of research do you guys do? Is there any sort of oral history that you hear from your parents? How do they describe it to you?
For me, the Pontianak, right? I mean, there's so many different permutations of the origin story, right? The one I decided to take was that if a woman is raped and dies with the baby, she will come back as a Pontianak. That means, from a violent death, right? And that a nail had to be put into the back of the neck. So when I worked on the script with Amanda Lee Khoo, that was essentially the premise. I said, you just take it from there and come on. And we wanted very much also that the spirit be a teenager, something that I have not seen before. And I thought that would lend to more of a tragedy, and then to be able to identify some way with the spirit, because I like almost the horror films that I've watched, like The Ring and all that. It's very important to also identify and feel for the spectre. What was the past?
For Joko, I understand Wei Wei was something that's also tied to your childhood. You were saying, your mom will try to, say, if it's past 7 p.m., you have to come in. If not, the Wei Wei will kidnap you. Do you consult with, some of the motherly figures in your family to find out more? What exactly are you talking about? How does this Wei Wei really looks like? What is this thing that you're trying to scare me with?
Well, the common perception about Wei Wei is this woman, very big and tall, hairy, and with the breast hanging. It's very common, but I was trying to find the human side of this ghost, because we have to what's the word in English? Make the ghost human, even though they ghosts, to make it interesting for us as an audience. So they're not there just to be a menace to the other characters, but they also have to be a character themselves. I make the story about a human who is still alive and trying to protect her child against a ghost who cannot have children and want to have a child. So I make the story actually parallel. So the characters of the human and the ghost actually can mirror each other in a way. They will do bad things in order to protect a child that she has or she doesn't have. Yeah.
I think what also, besides talking about the demons, the characters in the movie also stood out. And I think what really stood out are the child actors and the young lady that acted in I think especially in Joko's A Mother's Love and yours, Nobody. Maybe I'll ask Joko again, how do you sort of communicate the story to such a young sort of actor? Does he know what the story is? Does he connect to it? Or what is the process on working with a child actor in a horror film?
Yeah, I love working with child actors. I always have a child actor in all my films. My last film, I worked with 7 child actors at once. The one that was in Folklore was particularly a child prodigy, and he's super talented. But most of the times, because they're still a child, you have to take care of their moods, and you have to make sure that they're happy doing what they're doing to be able to come up with the performances that believable and suitable for every scene. So most of the time we don't use action and cut and other filmic terminology in shooting. So I just set up a scene, and then as if we just rehearsing a scene, and then I have a special code for my cameraman to roll and my soundman to roll. On Monday we will use cable, so I would say something like, "Can you take that cable for me?" And they will be rolling. On Tuesday, paper. I was saying, that paper is so wide, and then something like that. So different for every day. So the child, because he's very intelligent, he, at one point when I say, can you take the yellow cable for me? He said, that means rolling, right? So,
You got it already.
yeah. So working with children actors actually is very interesting and very easy. And working with child actors who has not been in films, it's even easier because they will be pure in giving the performances.
And this question is for Erica. I mean, sort of the main actress in the film is a young lady. And, you know, the character for Pontianak is so loaded, you know, it has been filmed so many times, the story is so famous. How do you sort of communicate what you want and need her?
You know, actually, I was asking friends, you know, if they knew of any young actress below the age of, let's say, 16. And it was really interesting because I was given the name of this young actress. So I basically WhatsApped the mother and said, look, would you be interested to audition for this horror thing that I'm doing, right? And it was really strange because they were coming back from a trip. They were in SIA plane and she was watching 7 Letters, which my episode in 7 Letters was about the Pontianak as well. And she was telling the mother on the flight, I would really like to work with Eric Khoo. And as they get out, they saw my WhatsApp. And when I met the girl, I mean, she's, I think at the time only about 12 years old. But there's just this intelligence and she had it all. I mean, when I was just giving her a brief of the story, and she was really, really perfect. And now she's studying acting and all that. And I think she'll go far. But really good working with her. And it's almost destined to happen, yeah.
This is a question for Penek. I realized that, you know, in your story, the ghost was communicating to sort of someone from a different culture. Is this something that you were trying to sort of put out there also? You know, the kind of themes of ghosts in a different landscape, in a changing landscape, and they seem to like not know how to sort of maneuver themselves now. Is it something that you?
Yeah, and I grew up with that, you know, that as Thai people, we all, I don't know why, every time we face a Westerner, we always feel afraid. Like, we don't know why.
And you would never call him?
Yeah, we I don't know why, but we always, and in my mind, a Westerner, I shouldn't generalize like this, but I'm going to do it. Especially Americans are very kind of dominant because they come from a, I don't know, maybe their country is so big or something. They talk loud, they have large personalities, it's very imposing. And that to us, even more scary. Because like Europeans sometimes they kind of, you can like Europeans are kind of shy, so they're not that scary. But you know, that's why the guy in the film is American. It's I don't know if it's that the theme or not, but basically, and also because I've never met a ghost, you know, so I don't know what it like, or maybe I've met, but I didn't realize. So I'm not scared. So in a way, it's like to be scared or not scared. It also depends on the context. You know, in this case, the American was not scared at all because of he didn't know the context. You know, he didn't grow up with folklore basically. he didn't grow up with that. You know, so it's yeah. So all these things makes up the script, you know, or what we're trying to say with the film. And plus, I don't think I have the ability to make scary thing for 1 hour. You know, if I have to make something really scary, you know, it won't last that long. Maybe it'll be like a short film.
So on the subject on sort of changing landscape, culture, languages, communication, I think it's really sort of imminent in your story, Nobody, where the characters were speaking different languages, and it seems there's only one guy who knows the local language and the local folklore who is aware of it. Is it something that you were sort of deliberately trying to pull out there? That
Well, essentially, right. I mean, I think a lot of it also had to do with a case that happened in Singapore many years ago, where there was a foreign worker who was injured really badly, right? And the contractors, the company, what they did was they tried to murder him and throw him into some sort of sand pit thingy, right? But they got arrested, and the poor guy was paralyzed. And so Amanda and I wanted to do a film about the haves and the have-nots. So if you look at Nobody, essentially it's a plight. It's an episode for the meek, just like the young girl character who becomes a Pontianak, and also the foreign laborers. And of course, because Singapore being what it is, I mean, people speak in different languages. And it was something that I did a long time ago with 12 stories that I wanted to revisit and have different languages.
We're talking a bit more about the process of writing to screen, and since we're talking to you now, we'll take it from there. We understand that Amanda wrote the story and you directed it. So what sort of input does Amanda have in the visualization of the
Yeah, so I mean,
product?
she wrote a lot of scenes that were really scary, but it was very difficult to achieve. And also, I think what makes Folklore special, we hardly have any CG, a lot of it practical effects. And for me, I think because it was her first foray into horror, she wrote a lot of graphic stuff, right? And I had to sort of like tone her down a bit. And also, I didn't know how to put someone up on the ceiling, so, and I didn't want to complicate the shoot because seriously, I had to film in this island called Batam, and it's really haunted. So I wanted to shoot there as fast as I could and get the hell out, right? So we shot it in 3.5 days, okay? And my DP is sitting over there, Kyung, who's brilliant. I mean, he doesn't need some light. And next to him is my AD who did all the work because I was hiding in the room. And that sexy girl there did the makeup. So if any of you want to do horror, go to her. And the guy with the nice silver hair is the composer of the main theme, Folklore, and for Nobody. So yeah, I mean, it was exciting collaborating with Amanda, and I'm also working with her now on my new series, the episode for Food Law, called Tamarind. Yeah.
And talking about process, I understand from Ho Yuhang that you shot the film and you realized that the demon was not so present in it, and then you sort of agree that you should probably put the toyo and make it more sort of obvious. So it seems like your writing process, you don't really have the toyo everywhere in the story. You kind of wrote the story out and then put in the toyo after. So could you tell us a bit more about your writing process and then sort of that toyo coming after the whole thing?
Because I thought it's already very obvious, pregnant lady, unwanted child, and all that. It's all over the place, right? It's just that you don't really see it. So yeah, it was a struggle. So it's really whether you want the script to feel atmospheric and the whole tone to be that way, or you can insert a monster, which has been done before. I mean, Hollywood film has.
You want a cameo, right?
Yeah.
Did you catch him? He appears twice.
Really?
That's the Toyo.
Once.
Oh, it's the toyo.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, anyway, so it's really not in the script because I didn't really know how to design one, right? And you did talk about the design. The Toyo image to a lot of Malaysian is this there's only one way to look at it. It's green, pointy ears, little thing, right? And when you ask people, when I ask some people who've seen them, very strangely, it's nothing like that. Yeah, the popular imagination, if you Google Toyo, it's that way. And the other films that you see, it's all like that. This little green thing, pointy ears, some sharp teeth, But I did ask the hospital I filmed actually had toilet. I only found that out after I filmed it because the manager of the place, the location said, oh, you know, they come at night. I said, what?
You think you were calling it because of the
No, they don't allow people to shoot past 5 p.m. because there are past shooting experiences where people stayed very late and things started to happen, right? So he said, yeah, in fact, there were ghouls. And what he told me is nothing like the image that we know, you know, the whole pointy ear green thing, right? So I decided when I wanted to insert something like that, I didn't want to go that route. I thought it would be something completely different, something wet, something that comes straight out of the vagina or something, you know, like just a stillborn thing, like, you know, like still wet, you know, slimy. And I did have a bit of liberty with the shiny eyes, like Uncle Bunmi, right? Just for the hell of it, yeah. To make it like it's Toyo 2.0, you know, the new version, upgraded, something like that, yeah. So that was the whole process, yeah.
Talking about locations, like you were saying, you're in Batam, and you're like, oh, I just want to go out of it. What kind of, you know, sort of any special procedures that you do as a team?
Okay, I mean, the interesting thing is, when I got to the site, there was a Bomo. He was there, and we had to pray, do the ritual. And it was amazing because the 3.5 days that we shot, right, there was never any rain. And a lot of it was exterior. He kept the rain away. On the 4th day, it just poured, right? And then he said later on, I can only keep the rain away for 3 days, right? But it was interesting because one night as we were filming, my producer comes up to me and then she goes, Eric, you know, you can't curse or say anything bad tonight because there are a lot of spirits here. And the Bomo says they're not happy. So one by one, she told everybody, right? And so everybody had to be really polite and not scream or curse. And then something happened to the foreman, you know. He was doing this action of falling several times, and there was a nice sort of like sponge surface padding, right? But on one occasion, he said something, and he saw something on the tree, and he fell backwards, and he knocked his head on the pipe. And my monitor was like quite a distance. I ran, you know, because he was just lying on the ground, and he had a wig on. So pulled it out, no blood. After about 10 minutes, you know, we did the shot. And then the following morning, I said, you know, what exactly did you see? And he said, I saw Pontianak on the tree, on top looking at me. And I think before that, he had said something not too good, right, to the Bomo or whatever, who had all these intestines coming out. And that was pretty spooky, you know. And supposedly there were a lot of like child spirits around the area. You know, they were very hungry and they didn't like us being there. And we were there till like about 11 at night. Yeah.
And for Yuhang and Joko, I also understand, like you already said, no, there are toyos around, and for Joko, you sort of film in like an abandoned buildings also. So for both of you, is there any sort of similar ritualistic things that you've done as a precaution before you kind of proceed with the filming of sorts?
In Indonesia, we have rain wrangler.
We have that.
We have,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. But the thing is, we didn't hire one specifically because our gaffer was a Muslim, very devout Muslim, so he knew the right verses to, you know, so every morning before we started shoot, we would just wait for him and, you know, follow through, you know, he would read for about a couple of minutes. So, and then we just do our bit, you know, because my crew, majority, they were Muslims. So, yeah.
It's a good business in Indonesia, the rain wrangler. I'm planning to have a university on rain wrangling.
But the Indonesian one is very powerful, I know.
Very powerful, yes.
Yeah.
You can, seriously, you can, if you shooting and you can see the darkest cloud hanging on top of your location, and then when the rain stopper or rain wrangler does his business, you can almost see the dark clouds just going away from your location and going someplace else. But the thing is, the thing about rain wrangling and moving the cloud to somewhere else, maybe you have a rainlanger that you pay perhaps $100 a day. Maybe in other location they have rainlanger that get paid higher, and they will send their cloud to our spots. So every time a wrangler cannot do his job, they will say, "Oh, someone else is sending over here, and he's more powerful than me."
It's like a duel, right?
More money.
Yeah.
How about penning? Is it in Thai culture, before, filming?
Yeah,
Is it-
we pray in general so that nothing bad would happen. But it's not because in Thailand, if we don't want to rain when we shoot, we find a virgin on the crew, and she has to stick lemongrass into the ground, and it stops the rain. But then you have to make sure there's a virgin on your crew.
In Malaysia, there's another funny practice. If the rain, you see the dark clouds coming. I mean the Chinese crew, not the Malay crew. Is you burn the call sheet of the day. Like the call sheet is, it lists down your day's schedule. Like today, you gotta shoot this. You start from when to when, and has everybody's contact. So it's for everybody to know what they're supposed to do. So and I know that because some of my Chinese crew, they do that. I have seen them do a few times. Like, oh, it's gonna rain this afternoon, and we have a couple of more shots to go. They burn the call sheet, and then it didn't rain. Like really strange.
So it's quite interesting that there's sort of like a sort of similar ritual that kind of like ties four of you, even though you're from really separate countries, but there is sort of a similar sort of sensibility before you sort of continue with your production. I'm going to open the questions up to the floor. Maybe we can bounce questions after. So if anybody have any questions for anyone in this panel, maybe you could just raise your hands up and we'll get the microphone to you. Shy. Do you guys have any questions for each other, actually? No.
That's looking for trouble.
No one on the floor? Okay, I have another question. Oh, this one? Okay, there, right there.
Can I ask, do you think Asian horror right now is in a better spot in the early 2000s compared to Hollywood horror currently?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Is Asian horror currently right now better than Hollywood horror in today's cinema? Sorry for the hard question.
It's okay. The last time I watched a horror film, last horror films I watched, The Curse of La Llorona.
It was quite bad, yeah.
Huh?
It was quite bad, I watched it, yeah.
Did you like it?
Didn't like it,
Yes.
yeah. Quite mediocre.
Yeah, and before that was
Hereditary.
Hereditary is something different. It's not a horror film.
Ah, yeah.
It's a gift for us, to us. But yeah, I think it's very difficult to have that way of thinking. For me, separating a horror movie and where they come from, because for example, The Curse of La Llorona was made and scripted by someone from South America, so it's not from Hollywood. And James Wan, who did several Marvel's Conjuring series, I think it's heavily influenced by Asian way of storytelling in horror films also. So if you're talking about where they come from and not from the authors, I think we kinda influence each other now because movies are very accessible. There are so many OTTs that can be OTT platforms like Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime videos that can be accessed from anywhere in the world, and everybody is exposed to everybody's work. So I think if you want to ask, is the horror films now better in general throughout the world compared to late 2000s? I think it's in the way of getting more interesting because the fusion of these cultures in horror films become more apparent, and I cannot wait to see the result of this expose to all kinds of film that everybody can watch in many from many sources. Is that too?
No, it's good. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions out there? It's a bit quiet. A bit more question on the demons. Back to the demons again. You know, all this kind of like oral history and research that you read about, you heard, you sort of, each of you kind of eventually created some of this visualization of this demon, what you think it looks like. But is it sort of just like a very individualistic practice, or do you actually kind of work with a team to kind of like create this imagery? How does it work? You know, do you talk to other people who are sort of like maybe someone, or I think that this person actually heard of this ghost, maybe I should speak to her. You know, that kind of consultation, how does it work in the process of creating this demon?
You know, I mean, for the Pontianak and myself, ever since I was a kid, I was hearing different types of stories. So, you know, very varied. But there was this lady, and she teaches at La Salle School, and she did a whole thesis on the Pontianak. So it's actually interesting to hear, you know, the history and how, in a way, like a few hundred years ago, they wanted the empowerment for women, and they created the spirit, yeah. But then again, you know, I think ultimately, because even like for the Pontianak, you have the Kuntilanak in Indonesia, you have another permutation in the Philippines. Difficult to say, you know, which is or what is the actual. I mean, even if you look at the toyo, there's different types of toyos. The Malaysian toyo, the Vietnamese toyo. In Vietnam, what they do is they actually take an embryo, right? They cut off the head, they cut off the arms, they've got the torso, they've got the two legs, and they put it in separate bottles. So with one baby, you create so many different toyos. And actually, I mean, when you look at Asian, especially Southeast Asian folklore, they are really, really interesting. You know, I've done my fair share of research for all the other spirits as well. The Penanggal is very interesting in Malaysia with the flying kid at the entrails. And that's one of the reasons why I feel folklore, you know, did work and it traveled very well to festivals and all that, right? And especially for his episode in Toronto, the Canadians are having a very good laugh. The big boisterous American. And I think, you know, it is important that we have become somewhat of a global stage as well. I mean, with streaming, and there's a lot of exciting stuff, but I still feel it's happening here. You know, and I you know, hope that, you know, more of our Asian sort of origin-based folklore can then maybe be translated for the Western market. I mean, for a while we saw that happening with the Japanese films and the Thai films, you know, but I think we'll get back there pretty soon.
How about Penny? You know, the character of the pot itself. Do you work with anyone else in sort of visualizing?
Yeah, because I think HBO sent us kind of regulations, you know, and one of them being that you have to submit like a design of the ghost. So I had to do something. Originally, I didn't want to do anything. I just want the guy to look like a beggar, and that's it. You know, because the story requires that. But yeah, I kind of made things up as a. My assistant and the art department, they did research about Bob, and they sent to me, and I looked at the research, I read the research, and I found it's uninteresting because they all pointed to a really like direction where it's so horror. No, I want it more like to look more like a human being. So kind of like it didn't pay so much attention to the research and just do as minimal as possible. Do as minimal as possible. I think I submit something more elaborate to HBO, but in the end we just didn't do it. We just keep it very, very simple. Yeah.
As for you, Hang, we kind of understand a bit more, how this Toyo sort of come about, the CGI part of it. But when you sort of decided to sort of, okay, I want it to look this way, were there people around you that is like, have any input on, when you were sort of creating that Toyo?
Yeah, mainly my producer. She's more in tune than me in terms of, I think she's seen some of these things. So I will go ask her, like, what do you think? Is it like this? And she said, no, more like this. So it's like doing a bit of a sculpture, change this, change that. I said, I want to make it more postmodern. Like, it's got to be hip. Does that work? And interestingly, she said, yeah, why not? Because, even in her, what she's seen before isn't really what the popular imagination could capture, right? So in her mind, I think also she wanted something, I think, there's this thing, but you can grow out of it. And make it look a bit strange even,
And for Joko, do you work with sort of your, what kind of team do you work with? Do you have a couple of people that kind of like create this sort of creature for you, or you kind of already knew what you wanted? How this was look exactly like this? How does it work for you?
Well, I've worked on several horror projects. The most difficult thing to design a creature or a ghost is not how to design it, but how to make it different from other ghosts that have been done. Because all ghosts have been done. So when we create something for folklore, and then we've been thinking, and then we thought, hey, this looks like a ghost from that movie, so we have to modify it. And then after we modify it to become something else, and then we discovered it looks like something from that film. So at the end of the day, we come up with something that has not been done. A woman very tall, very big, with two breasts hanging, very hairy, but a little bit deviate from the common perception of how Weiwei looks like. And the most difficult thing, of course, how to make the makeup and everything during the shoot. We cast a very tall, big basketball player to play the Weiwei in our film, because we cannot afford more effects than that. So we just someone who's really tall. So we put the makeup and everything. We shot in a studio that looks like an attic. We put the makeup and everything, and we told him to move. He didn't move. It turns out that the makeup covered his ears, so he cannot listen. And then we make a hole so he could listen to what I said. I said, action, move, walk. And he was moving very funnily. It turns out that he could not see. But we did not have any more time to take more shots, so that's what you saw. I was actually trying to
Find his way.
touch something.
Yeah. Okay, I'm opening the questions to the floor again. Maybe, okay, we have one up there.
Hi, sorry, I didn't get a chance to watch the films, but I wanted to ask about intent. We can go a little bit deeper about your intent of what you want to say in your works and what you consciously were avoiding to say in that. And the other question is, then what in particular do you pay attention to in the work itself, be it like, for instance, the art directions, cinematography, the performances that help to serve the intent that you have?
I didn't understand the question. It's very
Sorry.
difficult. It's very
Intention
academic,
means
it's
basically
very
what
academic.
is your purpose? What is the purpose of what you want to say with your work itself?
Well, for my episode, it just basically, again, we are a country of someone who think of of ourselves as being so inferior to Westerners. That's what the film is about, you know. So when the ghost is not being recognized by the American that he's a ghost, he loses all his confidence and he's no longer a ghost, basically. Luckily, there was a dictionary in the house that he used it in the end so he can overcome that problem. So that was the intent. I paid a lot of attention to the cinematography because, again, all the effects have to happen in camera. We didn't use CGI, and also we shot in black and white, and we shot the entire film in. We shot the film in black and white because I love black and white film. You know, I think it's really beautiful. So I thought I would make my episode like Bellatar. So I shoot black and white, low contrast. But then there's a flashback scene. So you make the film black and white, then what do you do with the flashback? And anyway, when we showed the cut to HBO said no black and white film. So we made the flashback into color. But yes, we pay a lot of attention to the cinematography because I really wanted the film to, apart from being like funny, we want the film to look beautiful as well. Because when you watch like comedy, usually it's always shot like TV movie, you know, it's always shot like television movies, you know. But this one we wanted to shoot like really beautiful cinematography. Anyone else want to?
I wanted to make a story about our Prime Minister's wife. Ex-Prime Minister, I'm sorry. Yeah, because, you know, to a lot of people, she's this very strange creature. Clown, you know, like witch, even to, you know. So I thought this is a chance, you know, to do it. That was the intention, and then I started writing the story. I thought, okay, there's this wicked woman, blah blah blah. But then I grew up kind of liking her. I thought, you know, I thought, okay, maybe, you know, I shouldn't be making fun of her. Like, and then so this character becomes something, has a very elaborate sort of plan, you know, to get married to this politician, blah, 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 which still mirrors probably the real story.
Did you change your mind while you were writing?
Sort of, because I kind of, after, you know, you have intent of making fun and, you know, caricature, and then, shit, I like her, you know? Yeah, and then I said, okay, I don't want to make so much fun of her, and I make her more human, and then there's this elaborate plan, and in the end, there is a reason for what she's doing, you know? Because I may never know what the real story is, but in my story, I sure as hell can make up something. So yeah, so it ended up that way, and it's a kind of a femme fatale sort of thing. So halfway through, I was writing a film noir, I realized, and then I did it. It continued, and I said, "Shit, where's the horror element?" You know, oh no, you know, I need some monster. I need something scary. So you just have to devise some scenes that are inexplicable, and you try to create this mood of mystery and all that. Yeah, and it's how severe you want it to be. Yeah. So really, I didn't go out to do an all-out scare fest. You know. Yeah. Yeah. So that's how it turned out.
How about Joko?
My intention was very simple, to just tell a story about this woman who is trying to protect her child. That's it. There's no other intention for this film in Folklore. So,
On the subject of intention, I think this is for Eric. going back to the story of Pontianak, I mean, you produced so many films on this woman, just one character. What is different in Nobody from your angle? What is sort of a different angle that you're trying to sort of portray her, or what sort of narrative? Is there any sort of new narrative on you?
Well, I mean, I'd say essentially that it's a teenage Pontianak, a very young, and then also, with my experiences with the old Pontianak films, they were always like musicals with the singing, and so I had to pay tribute to that in Seven Letters. But I wanted really a tragic figure, an innocent ghost in a sense, yeah. And the intention really was to get all these wonderful directors on board, Folklore, and come up with this, exciting series. And I mean, some I think do have, a bit more social commentary, but all in all, I feel we've succeeded because when you do a horror film episode or whatever, they should still have the scares. And I think all of them have scares, but what's been really, really wonderfully put down by a lot of them, author directors, is the humanity in the work and strong characters, which ultimately we engage with and need to follow the stories off. So good balance.
Yeah. Any more questions? Oh, we have one here.
Okay, I mean, you've mentioned that familyhood is one of the key themes that unanimously kind of appeared in all the films. But then I've watched all six and I also felt that there's also this common theme of what's scarier or what's more powerful, the living versus the dead, the humanity versus the supernatural. So is this also an intended theme that all of you also had when crafting out the scripts and the stories?
It was with ours.
Yes, it was with mine.
And I think for Yuhang, it is also, because the Toyo wasn't so present in the film. So the main character of Lahuda, she's almost the demon itself.
She's the embodiment of that. So it was really more about her, and then she's also turned out to be an unwanted child, so very much so, yeah. So there's that, and versus the unwanted family member versus the family that is in the limelight, a politician family that's always in the limelight, and she's a nobody. She's a nobody, yeah. So, yeah.
Wait, Joko. I just think of something because I don't want to copy your answer. No, there's one sentence in the film, in my episode where when the ghost talks to the journalist asks him, "Were you scared of a white guy when you were alive?" And he said, "Of course, I couldn't speak English, but I didn't think I would have this problem when I'm dead." So obviously as the film progressed, even from the script stage, we make sure that the role is reversed, so the ghost become more and more of a victim, and the American become more of like a ghost.
I think on the topic of the role reversal, this is quite eminent in Joko's work, where the main character of the mother was portrayed as this, very angry, very, a bit just negative towards a kid sometimes. And then you have the ghost, which clearly scary. But towards the end, it's almost quite reversal because, towards the end of the story, it's not a bit of spoiler here, but it's the ghost that actually kind of like give that energy or that motherly sort of energy to the living mother and the child. So is that something that you want to deliberately kind of put out there, that this ghost is not just scary, it's actually, it has good intentions? Is that where you're trying to get to with the character of Wavy in your story?
Yeah, like I said before, it's very hard to make a horror films. The story-wise, and also the character design, because all of them have been done. and the attitude of ghosts in a ghost movie is always the same. So I was trying to make it different. So if you guys saw it, you wouldn't really sure if the demon has been doing evil things throughout the story or the contrary. But talking about ending, so that's your ending. Because in my episode, I actually made a hint at the end of the film. After the movie cut to black, there's a little thing that the mother said. So some people might think that its ending is not actually the ending, but it ends before, or something like that. Yes.
Add to something what you said, because it reminded me of, I wanted to say it yesterday, when you say the white man now has become like a ghost, right? You know, in Chinese writing, I think Chinese probably invented racism because Bailo, yeah, the white people is called ghost. Yeah, the red hair ghost or whatnot, anything foreign, you know. So when they encounter this white foreigners, they were all ghosts to them. Yeah.
Okay, more question with one year, and maybe the sir right there in front of
The
us.
white man.
Ghost.
I'm not really here.
You look transparent.
I've heard that line before. Just one other area where I think there's commonality among all four of these films in the event, not only the family theme, but also a theme of financial inequity. And those inequities in particular are tied to the contemporary historical moment. This sense in all the films that there have been economic excesses that can no longer sustain themselves in the global system. So if you could comment on that.
Well, we've been under the military dictator government for 5 years until like last month. So yeah, during the 5 years, it's a lot of businesses fold. You know, a lot of people lost their jobs. Yeah, so obviously the journalist in our film, he still managed to hang on to his job, but obviously he's not in a good state, you know. So obviously it's a comment that's obvious, you know, but because in the last, well, they've been in power for 5 years, you know, but I would say in my country in the last 2 years, I mean, it becomes like a common thing that people talk to each other, you know. Apart from the flood, they just talk about how they don't have enough to sustain. Yeah.
How about now?
Well, we changed government last year. So for the longest time, there's this gross mismanagement. And our currency really suffered, right? So the thing is, the past 50, 60 years, you have a group of Malays which are elites, you know, our ex-prime minister being one example. So you have these very elite people, and you have also the forgotten ones, some of their own people, you know. So there is that, and I think Nabila Buddha is one of those, you know, second woman, you know, discarded. She's thrown away and all that, and then you have this rich and famous on the outside, right? Presentable to the world and all that. But yeah, so you know, it's something that we're very familiar with, that whole screw up, and we feel powerless. You know, it's not that we're invaded by a foreign country or anything. It's just that we have done this on our own. You know, very sadly. Yeah, and Malaysia now, I mean, when we go to Thailand now, it used to be we can just use ringgit, you know, our currency, and they will just take it. It's nobody. I mean, it's been 5 years, about probably the last 2-3 years, that they don't want the money anymore. it's just Thai baht or US dollar, you know. So it saves a lot. They don't want your money. Not even in Indonesia. It's even, yeah, some currency exchange. Ringgit. We're not sure, you know. Yeah, so they don't want our money. It's very sad.
But also, Yuhang, I think there's also a theme of, those with power have power over
Or
people,
even more power, over
people that sort of need help in the rural sort of landscape, and people with power sort of kind of almost do what they want or really get out of the way to sort of, work.
The Malaysia that we know for a long time is rather lawless in many ways. I'm sure in Thailand, you told me stories about the royal family and all that. So, I mean, we understand that completely, right? Yeah. I don't know, Indonesia, I don't know what's the situation like. It's like, but yeah.
I think we have one question.
So can you share your experiences with working or horrors with working with HBO, and maybe what advice you can have for filmmakers in future doing with streaming services? Thank you.
I think we.
No, I mean, like I said, it was a real fun time that we had, especially him and his black and white scenario. But yeah, I mean, it was good, and yeah, I'm collaborating with HBO on another anthology series, and it's Food Law. And instead of 6 episodes, we've got 8 episodes, and again with some of the filmmakers on Folklore will reappear with Food Law. But I can't say too much about the series. It should air around November. Yeah.
We're talking about sort of collaboration.
No, so seriously, I mean, I had a great time with HBO and especially Garen, who's the creative vision there. Maybe it's also sensibility that we always, would share notes and feedback, and he was very fast and turn around. And I think he did personally also feel very, very much for the individual episodes, the stories. But I had a great time, working with him. And it's always good that we're on the same page. And for him as an individual also to be able to look at this broad spectrum of very varied material was definitely a plus point. Because I made it very, very clear to HBO that once we give these guys the role as the filmmaker for their episode, they had to have free reign. Because if you come out with a mini-series, whatever, you hire directors, just follow the format. I didn't want that. And that's why they stand apart and they are very, very good on their own, individually. So how was it like working with HBO?
I have no problem at all. They have problems with me, but I don't have problems. Of course, black and white being one of the things that you should not do for television, because it means all film. I didn't know that, So I haven't watched TV for the last 7 years. So I didn't know that. I wanted to make my film black and white, and okay, we found out. But apart from that, comments and notes and stuff, I get very minimum comment from HBO, even from script stage and everything. I got some, but so you choose to satisfy the ones that you can satisfy, the one that you can think, oh yeah, this comment is actually, if you try to solve this problem, it might be better. So you do that, right? But the ones that you don't think, the comments that actually doesn't contribute to the script being better or the film being better, you just kind of like ignore it. But I think my producer, he guessed that Eric must have done a lot of this fighting for us because it didn't come too much to me, so you did, right? Oh, you didn't. So HBO is a great place to work with,
Don't think I had much problem. I don't know. I added the damn thing, the monster. But I didn't mind it at all. Yeah, in fact, everything I do, I like to think of it as, well, might as well make something fun out of it. And I did learn something, which is fun. I did work with a bunch of young CG boys and they're very enthusiastic. So we experimented with a lot of things, and so a lot of good came out of it. Yeah, more like your experience, I guess. Yeah, I also think that, yeah, I imagine Eric probably filtered a lot of stuff for us, you know. Which probably didn't do anything. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem whatsoever. I sent them my first synopsis and okay on the first go, and then the script, first draft is okay, and then we shot, first edit, okay. So very easy and very fast, which is good.
Okay, but I will bring up something else. There was this whole hue and cry over the black and white this episode. And from producer, right, coming back to me, and I told HBO, I said, look, you're just not going to win on this one. Let it be black and white, right? Because there was that phone call. After that, I heard, yeah, we gave it to him black and white. Yeah, yeah, because it was very important for that episode to actually be in black and white.
Yeah, but the thing is, the thing is, what's funny is that after we fought, you know, about black and white, not black and white, black and white, you cannot have black and white. I said I cannot have color, you know, you cannot. And I think there's one point during the shooting that we stopped shooting for one day and had to Skype phone call, you know, with HBO. And people who don't make films, they always think like this. But you shot in color, right? Because you shot digital. But you shot in color, right? So in the end, if we decide that it could be color, you can just make it like, oh, and you can, if we want to go with black and white, we just like take out the color, you know. But I said, no, black and white is different than colorless. I mean, if you shoot, if you think in color, and in the end you just take the color out, it's not black and white, it's just like colorless. Because, right, yeah, because if your intention, you have to have intention from the beginning that you want to make it black and white, because the lighting will be different. The way you light black and white and the way you light colors is, with color you light less, much less. With black and white you have to light a bit more, for example.
Yeah.
So it's all these. But what's funny to me is that after we sent the first cut, they liked the film very much. And now they're the one, the HBO, they're the one now who wanted the film in black and white.
That's right.
They said, it has to be black and white. It has to be black and white. We have to fight with our boss in the States.
Yeah.
We have to tell the HBO in the States, it has to be black and white. So when I heard this, I told my producer, can you call HBO? Because I want the film in color. Now I want the film in color. But in the end, it was them who said that it has to be black and white. It must be black and white. It cannot be anything other than black and white.
You see, this guy, if he wasn't a filmmaker, he'd be a very good lawyer. So anyways, yeah, they gave up and they loved it, and that was great. Mm.
Talking a bit of an extension of that collaboration with HBO, but on you guys' end, you know, it's a commission work. How much of, you know, the elements in, you know, you guys produce a bunch of films before you produce this, so you kind of have like a bit of, you know, things that you are comfortable with. Is there anything that you have to sort of let go of while producing this commission work? Is there things that, you know, that you've done in your previous film that you hope you wish you could have brought into this series that you were unable to do so because, you know, of it being of like a commission nature?
I have. It's the length. Like 53 minutes is a very difficult length to make a film, because if it's 20 minutes you can make a short film. If it's like 1.5 hours you can make a feature film. But I'm so uncomfortable having to write for 1 hour. It's something that I'm not familiar at all. And in the end, of course, you know, our film is it's longer than what is required, and we have to we have to kind of condense it, like cut things out. And I feel that it's a bit rushed.
How about the other directors? Is there any sort of Joko, okay? How about Yuhang?
No, I always
Then
think
you-
the shorter the better. If it's 10 minutes, even better. I like films that are under 90 minutes, like 88. It's like great, with credits,
53 is hard.
Yeah, 53. It's kind of, yeah.
But we understand that it's your very first film, which is shot entirely in Bahasa Melayu.
Yes, yeah.
So is there, maybe you could share a bit more sort of the challenges that you
Yeah.
have? Because, like Eric said, it's quite specific that you want it to be produced in the language of, of the country. So what were sort of your kind of like problems or otherwise working in sort of...
I thought it's gonna be tough because I know Bahasa Malaysia, but it's not my first language. And I work very closely with the actors on that. I said, I would tell them this is how it is in English, right? The structure of it, the idea, and I don't have to really follow exactly. But I said, would the logic work for you? How would you say certain things? Like, would this flow work? And I also want it not realistic. I think dialogue sometimes are not realistic, so I didn't want that. So it has that outlook, and then they know that. So they know that also the way I wanted to shoot it, it would be like a film, and it's not like a piece of social release drama, So there is artificiality involved, and they're very conscious of that. Yeah. So I want them to actually act like as if we were watching a film, not like we're watching a So very interestingly, I didn't want that sort of realism, in the dialogue, So and that became quite easy, because they didn't have to speak in too much of a colloquial sort of way, and yet they found a middle ground and it still works and sounds okay. Because my producer was Malay and she thought, it would sound all right. And every time anything that sounded strange, we went into great detail. Would you be like this or just a bit of that, And we would have this long talk. No, it should be like this or not that, So we were really rather specific,
We have one question there.
I just want to ask, among all the folklores, right? Okay, which are the demons that are misrepresented but deserve to be shown on the screen? That means besides Pontianak and all the stuff that you did, any other folklores, demons that that was underrepresented but then deserves to be
Maybe for Folklore 2.
Is there one?
Is there one?
We're talking to the spirits.
Maybe one or two other questions? Maybe only have one right here.
Understand that other than Joko, which is more or less a director, more than one horror film, the rest of you, including the upcoming two, which I have not seen, have not direct a proper horror film before. So what's the experience of, other than Joko, what are your experiences as directing as the first horror film?
I mean, for me, it was pretty scary on Batam Island. Because I am superstitious, and I think all of us are to a degree. And actually, one of the spirits that really fascinate me is the toyo, but it is too scary for me to even attempt as an idea. So I was very happy and relieved he wanted to do it.
It's difficult. It's very difficult. Makeup takes a lot of time, and then when you have to put blood on somebody's face, and then what do you do if things go wrong the first take, then second take, what do? You wipe out the blood and then you start all over again. So in that sense, it's very difficult for my experience. It's very difficult. And also because I brought it onto myself as well, that to shoot through the glass, and things to create the effect in camera, that even though we prepared really well, we tested a lot before we shot the film. We tested exactly to know how to do it, but when you actually get to the real location, it's kind of, the room doesn't allow for this piece of glass, and you have to get, so all kinds of things happen. So it's difficult in a technical sense. It's very difficult. I would not do it again. Yeah.
I don't watch so many horror films, so there are some I like, but I tend to find a lot of horror films funny. I don't get scared, but I just thought, oh, this is really funny, So it's hard for me to, it's a learning process. I think the writing of it, I guess I didn't start to write a straight out horror story. And more like I want to write a story about my ex-prime minister's wife. I want to do something strange and fun, right? And maybe that's the horror of it. I could get something out of it, and it changed course. I did learn along the way, like what do you not show and show. I think Joko is more experienced when it comes to hiding things and creating suspense, and it's a technique. I think horror film has very set rules of the game, and horror fans know this inside out. So it's very hard to lie to them or to cheat them, and then try to have some cheap scare, and they won't buy that stuff, right? Yeah, so not easy at all, I would say. Yeah, I would do it again. It's just for the hell of it. Yeah.
Is there anything?
Oh, for me it's very easy. Oh no, it's difficult each time. But why I love making horror films, because I believe that horror films is the most honest genre, because it is made to give the audience that experience of being scared, being frightened. It's very primal. There's no other way to describe it. I mean, if you watch a drama film, you can be amused, but the amusement can be different for every audience, depending on the social status or the level of education that you have, perhaps. But horror film is very straightforward. Like I said, it's very honest. You're watching a drama film, you can be amused, but you can also be intellectually amused. But watching a horror film, you cannot be intellectually frightened. So it's very honest, just frightened, scared. That's why it's. I love it, because it's just about giving that how to give that audience that sensations watching a horror film on screen. Yeah.
Any last questions? Wait, we have one more.
Hi, I myself is a sound designer, so I would like to ask you guys about the sound. Not only the sound, but the sound, original score. How do you use them to increase the fear and the scare?
I think with horror, right, what's really important is the sound design. And so in the case of Nobody, actually, my actor, Mee Pok Man, Jo Eung, who's now into sound designing and all that, did the score and sound for Nobody. We basically would go through references. I think it's important to listen to the soundscape of some of the horror films that we enjoyed. I mean, for me, I'm more old school. If you ask me what sort of horror films I like, it'd be Rosemary's Baby, the earlier films. And of course, with the Japanese and the Thai movement later. And once you can get that right sound, it really enables the visual scares to be so much stronger. And sometimes also for horror, when you strip the sound and take it off, it can be damn spooky. Yeah. So it was something that was exciting for me to explore with, especially it being one of my first horrors, and it was interesting with Jo Eung, because he experimented on different instruments, and even the way we did the surround, where the sounds come, which speaker. So actually when we watched them in the theater, it was pretty good experience, like in Toronto. Good sound.
In my case, the way I work with this one. I work with a new composer, not my usual composer, because my composer he was very busy. So what I do is that with my usual composer, he's Japanese. Usually I ask him to read the script, and then he just imagine things, and then he does like maybe 6-7 tracks for me before I shoot or during I'm shooting. So when I'm editing the film, I have the real, more or less the real music to use to edit the film, because I don't like using like temp music and then later on you have to copy it, because for months you're so used to this sound, and when you copy it doesn't work, right? So normally I would do that, but with this guy being like, he's new to me. We've worked on 1 or 2 TV commercials together. So what I did with this one is that I just went to his office and I just raided his computer basically, like the stuff that he has done that has not been used. Like sometimes he composed something and he just keeps them. So he had a lot. So I just raided basically his hard disk and just picked the one I think might work, and then we just dropped them in. But the thing is, like Eric said, I think it's more sound design than scoring in our case, and strange sound. When the journalist walks to the spooky toilet in our film, you can hear like helicopters, because that helicopter sound is in the score of this piece, and we couldn't get rid of it, so we just keep it, and it kind of works, So yeah, we just I just took what already was existing, and just kind of the trick is to misuse them, not to use them according to the intention of the composer. Yeah.
I think I presented to the composer a rather big challenge, because we changed the idea. In the beginning, we knew, it's the first time I work with this guy. He's an experimental musician. He wouldn't call himself a musician, he calls himself a sound artist. So he teaches kids how to use analog equipment and stuff like that. It's very interesting. So he has workshop with young kids and all that. So I like that aspect of his work. So I went to him and say, can you read the script and then tell me what sort of tone you have in mind? And also he's the kind of person that collects Malay instruments. So he has a lot of those things sampled, and there are sound that I have not heard before that could mutate in a certain way. So I wanted to work with him in that capacity. So he started actually composing something that is very, how to say, like music, right? Then he said, we're not sure. So I went to him and said, can you make the music like sound? Can you make the sound like music? And it's very tough. It was a long process trying to get that. You get the piece of music and say, can you make it more like a sound? That kind of long back and forth. And after a while, I realized a lot of the sampling that he's done earlier on, when he just fresh from reading that script, that he set aside, was exactly the kind of thing I wanted, because it was his original impression that he got from the script. Because after a while, it was over composing, so a lot of things came in, and it became a bit of a distraction. Yeah.
It's very important to design to sit together with sound designer and music composers before we shoot the film. Usually, Because I'm too proud to give them references, either sound or music. I usually collected paintings from the internet to show them the feel of the film. Like for instance, for Mother's Love, it was loneliness and longing for someone that someone's love. So I look for paintings that represent that feel according to my feeling, and I show them to my music composers. And similar to Panic, he would then make several music scores. And if that does not suitable for the film, I would ask him to revise it. We would discuss, and after he come up with something that we agree on, that's the feel of the film, we would I would play the music to all the cast and the crew. And I often play the music when we between takes, and then I would play it so people can understand the feel that we trying to achieve. Sound also like that. I think it's the most important and the most intricate and difficult part of filmmaking is the sound design. Someone cannot forgive you for bad sounds.
All right. I would say thank you so much to all four of you for your offering, really, for
Thank you so much.
and sharing with us details that we otherwise wouldn't have figured out, really. Thank you all, of course, above all, for joining us this Sunday afternoon. I believe there'll be a screening after this, so for more details you can ask. Kim will probably fill you in with more details.
Okay, so I'd just like to again thank the moderator Wardah with us, and of course 4 directors Eric, Benek, Yuhang and Joko. And thank you for joining us today. So I believe there's still seats available if you would like to check out the last double bill of the Folklore series, which is the Korean and the Japanese editions, Tatami and Mongol. So if you're interested, the box office is available. If not, the Fear of Monsters series continues on to late July. Pick up an orange booklet outside, check out the schedule, and tickets are always available. So with that, I would like to thank everyone again and have a good rest of the evening. Thank you.